Let's talk about one of the most audacious, clumsy, and frankly hilarious cash heists in American history. It's a story so wild, so unbelievable, that it earned the nickname the Hillbilly Heist. So picture this, October 4th, 1997, Charlotte, North Carolina. A vault supervisor at a company called Loomis Fargo casually walks out of his job with $17.3 million in cash. At the time, this was the second largest cash robbery ever to happen on U.S. soil. Just incredible. You know, it's the ultimate question, isn't it? You've pulled off the impossible. You have the money. So what's the next move? How do you actually disappear and start that new life of luxury you've been dreaming of?
Well, as it turns out, their story isn't a masterclass in how to be a criminal genius. It's more like a how-to guide for getting caught in the most spectacular way possible.
Okay, first up, let's meet the players and take a look at the perfect plan. We've got to understand the masterminds behind this supposedly foolproof inside job. Our story really revolves around three key people. First, you've got David Ghantt. He's the inside man, the guy with the keys to the vault. Then there's Kelly Campbell, a former coworker of his, who was really the one who got the ball rolling. And finally, Stephen Chambers, an old high school friend who kind of saw himself as the criminal mastermind of the whole operation. On paper, the plan was almost beautiful in its simplicity. Step 1, Gant grabs all the cash. Step 2, he immediately flees to Mexico with about 50 grand in pocket money. Step 3, Chambers takes the rest of the loot and secures it. Then he'll just wire Gant money to live on until things cool down. And finally, they all get back together and split the fortune. Simple, right? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Which brings us to the main event, the night of the heist itself. So for more than an hour, Gant is just methodically loading giant cubes of cash into a company van. I mean, think about the physical effort here. He is literally moving a mountain of money, all by himself. He manages to cram an absolutely astonishing $17.3 million into the van. He meets up with Chambers and Campbell, they transfer the money to their own vehicles, and Gant makes a beeline for the Yucatan Peninsula. So far, so good. Except, not quite. When the FBI found that abandoned Loomis van a couple days later, guess what they discovered? $3.3 million. Just sitting there, left behind in the back. And right there, we have our first major blunder. You see, the crew had absolutely no idea how much space and weight that much cash, mostly in small bills, would actually take up. They literally couldn't fit it all in their getaway car. This was the very first crack in their perfect plan. Which brings us to part 3, the spending spree. Folks, this is where the story goes from being a kind of clumsy heist to an absolute comedy of errors. See, while Gaunt was trying to lay low in Mexico, the Chambers family got a little carried away with their newfound wealth. Now, the agreement was simple. Lie low, control your spending for a year, maybe 2, let the FBI lose interest. But the reality? Oh, the reality was the exact opposite. They immediately launched one of the most obvious, conspicuous, and just plain dumb spending sprees you can possibly imagine. They went from a mobile home to a mansion in a fancy neighborhood overnight. They bought a brand new BMW Z3 with a bag full of cash. They bought a minivan, a cigar store Indian, and yes, a velvet Elvis painting. They weren't just leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for the FBI, they were paving a 4-lane highway with flashing neon signs pointing directly to their door. But if all that flashy spending wasn't enough, this is the real kicker. Michelle Chambers, Steve's wife, walked into a bank, right up to a teller, and asked, word for word, "How much can I deposit before you have to report it to the feds?" She even added, "Don't worry, it's not drug money." Yeah. Unsurprisingly, the bank immediately filed a suspicious activity report that went straight to the FBI. So, with a literal mountain of tips and these suspicious bank reports flooding in, the FBI's investigation, which was already focused on this crew, just went into overdrive. I mean, the FBI was on to Gaunt from day one. He was the only employee missing. The security tapes clearly showed him taking the money. They found his abandoned truck. He even left his wedding ring inside. A little dramatic flair, I guess, to signal he was leaving his old life behind. But this is where the story takes a much, much darker turn. As the FBI was monitoring the Chambers crew, they uncovered something chilling. Steve Chambers, the mastermind, had decided David Ghantt was a loose end, so he hired a hitman to find Ghantt in Mexico and kill him. Suddenly, this wasn't just a robbery investigation, it was a race against time to save their prime suspect's life.
The collapse was incredibly fast. I mean, the heist was in October and the final arrests were in March. The entire scheme unraveled in less than 6 months. The FBI traced a phone call, they worked with Mexican authorities to arrest Ghantt, and the very next day they swept up the rest of the crew back in the States. The party was officially over.
So what happens after all the flashy purchases, the murder plot, and the arrests? Let's look at the final accounting of the crime and its aftermath.
In the end, you have to give it to the FBI. They did an incredible job tracking down the money. They recovered about 88% of the cash, but that still leaves over $2 million that, to this day, has never been found. It's just gone.
And when it came to sentencing, the mastermind, Stephen Chambers, got the longest term, over 11 years. But here's something interesting. David Ghantt, the guy who actually stole the money, he only got 7 years. That's actually less time than Michelle Chambers, whose main crime was just being a really foolish spender. And this whole thing wasn't just about 3 people. The web of greed spread really wide. All told, 24 people were convicted of various crimes. Friends, relatives, anyone who helped hide the cash. It was a heist that pulled an entire community into its orbit. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. This story is now a legend, right? It's been made into a comedy film, it's a punchline. But is that because of the mystery of those missing millions? Or was the sheer breathtaking incompetence of the criminals themselves always destined to make this the funniest, most ridiculous heist in American history?